The Galactic Council's security checkpoint hummed with the usual morning chaos. Commander Vexthal, a towering Krathan with crystalline scales that reflected the station's harsh lights, reviewed his morning briefing with growing irritation. Another human had arrived on Station Kepler 7, and with humans came complications. Dr. Sarah Chen walked through the scanner with the practiced ease of someone who'd passed through 1,000 such checkpoints. Behind her, silent as shadows, padded two creatures that made every security officer in the terminal freeze mid-gesture. Vexathal's secondary heart skipped a beat. Sylveth Pride cubs, alpha juveniles, if his xenobiology training served him correctly, the apex predators of Sylveth Prime, a death world so hostile that even the Krathan military had classified it as observation only. Human, Vexthal's translator crackled as he stepped forward, his hand instinctively moving toward his plasma sidearm. Explain the presence of those creatures. Sarah glanced back at the cubs, each already the size of an earth tiger, their midnight black fur rippling over corded muscle, eyes like molten gold fixed on her with unwavering attention. She smiled, the expression somehow more unsettling than the predators themselves. "These are Kira and Ash," she said simply. "They're with me." "That is not an explanation," Vexthal hissed, his translator failing to mask his agitation. "Sylveth Pride cubs do not leave their pack. They certainly do not follow other species. Security protocol demands—" "Security protocol," Sarah interrupted gently, pulling a data pad from her satchel. "Can review my credentials. I'm Dr. Sarah Chen, xenoecologist, here for the Council's Biodiversity Summit. Everything is in order." Vexathal snatched the pad, his claws clicking against its surface. The credentials were legitimate, too legitimate. This human had clearances that made his own look pedestrian, but that wasn't what made his blood run cold. "It says here you've been on Sylveth Prime for 4 standard years." He looked up, disbelief and something like horror in his compound eyes. "That's impossible. The longest any expedition has survived there is 47 days. 47 days if you fight the planet," Sarah said, reaching down to scratch behind Kira's ear. The cub, capable of tearing through reinforced steel, leaned into her touch with a rumbling purr that vibrated through the deck plates. "Longer if you listen to it." A crowd had gathered now, delegates from a dozen species, all keeping a respectful distance. A Threen ambassador, her tentacles coiled tight with anxiety, whispered urgently into her communicator. An Ordath merchant backed slowly toward the exit. "The Alpha pair," Vexthal said, his voice dropping to something almost reverent. "The parents of these cubs. Where are they?" Sarah's expression shifted, something ancient and sad flickering across her features. "Dead. Hunters from the Syndicate. They wanted the pelts, thought extinction of the Alpha line would make Sylveth Prime easier to colonize." The security commander felt his scales ripple, his species equivalent of a shudder. "And the cubs?" "Found me 3 days after. I was studying the fungal networks in the Crimson Valleys when they walked into my camp." Sarah's hand moved to Ash's massive head. The cub watched the crowd with eyes that missed nothing. "They were starving, too young to hunt the megafauna alone. I fed them, protected them from the scavenger packs, and when they were strong enough to leave—" She paused, her smile returning. "They didn't." "Impossible," whispered a Vexthal scientist who'd been listening. "Sylveth Pride structure is absolute. Cubs follow the alpha female, never outsiders. It's genetic, hardwired across millennia of evolution." Sarah turned to face the growing crowd, and Kira and Ash moved with her, perfectly synchronized. "Your scientists studied Sylveth behavior from orbit, from drones, from shielded observation posts. You watched them like they were specimens in a lab." "And you?" Vexthal asked. "I lived with them. I slept in their dens. I learned their language. Yes, they have one. Clicks and subsonic rumbles your translators can't process. I hunted with the pride, shared my kills, groomed their young. She looked down at the cubs, and they looked back with something that transcended mere animal loyalty. I didn't study them. I joined them. You're claiming, the Vexithel scientist said slowly, that you became part of a Sylveth pride? That they accepted you as pack? Not just pack, Sarah's voice carried across the now silent terminal. When the old Alpha died defending her cubs from the hunters, when Kira and Ash were orphaned, the pride had a choice. They could abandon the cubs, let nature take its course. Or they could accept a new Alpha. The implications crashed through the crowd like a shock wave. Vexithal's translator couldn't keep up with the sudden explosion of multi-species chatter. You're not suggesting, he began. Sarah didn't answer with words. Instead, she made a sound, a low, resonant call that seemed to come from somewhere deeper than her chest. Both cubs responded instantly, their bodies lowering, tails sweeping in a complex pattern, voices joining hers in a harmony that made every prey species instinct in the terminal scream warnings. When silence returned, Kira and Ash sat at perfect attention, their eyes never leaving Sarah's face. Humans don't follow anyone, Sarah said softly, echoing the cubs' absolute stillness. But we understand something your species forgot in your climb to civilization. Respect isn't given, it's earned. Trust isn't demanded, it's built. And family? She placed a hand on each massive head. Family isn't about genetics. It's about who stands beside you when the world tries to tear you apart. Vexthal stared at the human and her impossible companions. In his 40 years of security service, he'd seen every species the galaxy had to offer. He'd processed delegates, warriors, merchants, and scholars. But he'd never seen anything like this. Your credentials are approved, he said finally, stepping aside. Welcome to Station Kepler 7, Dr. Chen. As Sarah walked past, the cubs flowing beside her like liquid shadow, Vexthal heard her murmur something that his translator barely caught. Good cubs. We'll get you something to eat soon. And the apex predators of Sylveth Prime, the creatures that evolution had designed as perfect killing machines, that genetic programming said should bow to no one except their own, chirped with excitement like earth puppies. Later, filing his report, Vexthal would write, recommend immediate revision of all xenobiological protocols regarding humans. Previous assumptions about limits of interspecies bonding appear fundamentally flawed. But what he thought, watching the security footage replay for the dozenth time, was simpler. Humans don't follow anyone. But somehow, they make everyone else want to follow them, even the creatures who bow to no one.